We'll see.
And now, our feature presentation.
The best
in the world
is right here, right now.
Whether you like it or don't like it, pal, learn to love it.
Ladies and gentlemen,
welcome.
All right, listen up.
Now it's our time to step forward. It's time to bring the NWA back into the spotlight.
I was thinking that it might be a good idea if you and I formed an alliance.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Attention, everyone.
Welcome to the greatest wrestling program in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? Stop what you're doing and listen.
It's the Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts Kevin, Frazier, DKM, and JCap.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a special treat for you today. I have the man who's climbed to that mountaintop. He's seen the top of the hills. He's held that 10 pounds of golden leather. And I'm talking about Tim Storm. Now, some of you who are new to the NWA and NWA Power might recognize this man as the guy sitting behind the booth. But longtime fans of the National Wrestling Alliance recognize this man as the guy that carried the 10 pounds of gold all throughout the United States, defended the belt in Japan, brought the title home, and carried that belt with honor and class and dignity. And of course, I'm talking about Tim Storm. Tim, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Jay. Thank you for that introduction, man. It always surprises me, and I've had this conversation with other wrestlers in the NWA, that some are very new and don't remember our recent history. Some are like me and focus on, the 80s and 90s. But either way, we're just glad. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to have people that care about the NWA like I do.
Well, and you know what? The crazy thing about it is, and Dr. Stinson and I kind of go back and forth. I heard him coin the term the wilderness era from the NWA, post Jim Crockett Promotions up until now. Up until Billy's purchase, but I would even say that there's differentiations between that. But there's so much history and time in the NWA that people seem to forget about. And one thing that I always like to say is that each champion paved the way for the next guy. So we don't get to Nick Aldis if there isn't Tim Storm. We don't get to Tim Storm if there isn't an Adam Pearce, or Jax Dane, Rob Conway, and then, of course, a couple generations back, then we go Adam Pearce and Jeff Jarrett and a lot of those gentlemen, and even all the way down to Mike Rapata. Each person carried a role to bring the NWA to where it is today. And we talked a little bit a couple years ago, right before the premiere of Power, and it was right about the last. It was right before the first episode of Power, and it was going to be your do or die match with Nick Aldis. This would be the last time that you would get to challenge for the 10 pounds of gold while he was champion. And obviously some time has definitely passed since then. Is that still on the optics? Are you still hoping for an opportunity to get to challenge Nick Aldis or anyone who's carrying the 10 pounds of gold?
It's a weird situation for me, because I knew going into that match that was the stipulation, and a lot of people before that match, and I probably told you this, Vin, a lot of people going into that were like, well, yeah, just take the match. That was a big deal to me, to say, and you quoted it. If I go out in the beginning and I say, this is my mountaintop, there's nothing higher, and that's the truth. It was a difficult decision for me to balance between, okay, if I lose, I don't ever get a shot at this. On the other hand, it's not a lack of confidence that I don't think I can win that match. So it was a really weird balance that I had to figure out, and it came down to, yeah, it's absolutely worth it. I don't regret it. I'm very, very happy with the contest that Nick and I had, and I know it was a good starting point for episode 1 and kind of something to build on. Truthfully, I'll never give up that dream, because the only thing I can think of that would top holding the NWA World Heavyweight Championship is to do it again. So now, along the same lines, I understand it's a stipulation, and I lost the match. It's wrestling; anything can happen. But I'm like everybody else. I'm getting older by the day. I don't know how much is left in the gas tank. I'm not ready to quit, but I would love that opportunity again.
Well, if anyone has found the fountain of youth, Tim, it's you. You look great. You're best shape of your life every time we see you in the ring, and even though it's farther and fewer in between, you still look great. You still have the best tan in the building, and you get out there and you get after it, and it's always such a pleasure to see you in the ring. How do you stay in shape? How do you keep that ball going? I mean, yes, the matches are a little bit more intermittent for the National Wrestling Alliance, but you're still out there wrestling matches all over, correct?
Yeah, and it's again, it's another balancing act. I'm passionate about wrestling. I have been for a really long time, and I believe that if you're going to go out there and consider yourself a professional, you need to present yourself as a professional. And when I do clinics, when I talk to young guys, it doesn't. We all have our limitations. We all have like our physical challenges. But if I'm going to step in there in any way and represent the National Wrestling Alliance, I believe I should do that and be at the best condition I can be in. I honestly just don't. I'm not ready to quit. But I've also been saying for legitimately maybe 15 years that I don't know how much is left in the tank, and I don't know how much longer. I want to keep going as long as I can without being that guy that people say, yeah, you shouldn't be in the ring anymore. And I hope that I have good enough friends that would tell me that, or also that I would know myself. Consistency is a big thing for me, and I'm in the gym, depending on my wrestling schedule, 4 or 5 days a week. Diet is my key because I love to eat. And it is. Yeah, I love food, but what I've learned for me personally is that I know my time schedule. I know when I need to. Okay, this is how long before the pay-per-view or the TV tapings. And truthfully, in a lot of situations, I don't know going into a weekend for NWA if I'm doing all commentary or if I've got a match. So I kind of got to be ready for both. And like you said, I'm at that point in my life where I can't take an extended time off from the ring and then jump back in like nothing happened. So I'm still wrestling matches, 2 or 3, 4 dates a month when I can. And obviously the NWA is my priority, so I work around that. But it's a big pot of like cake batter, and I'm mixing it all the time, and I'm trying to make it come out right. And sometimes I hit it, sometimes I won't. We talked before we came on, and that's what I'm in the grind right now. I've got this is Monday. I will leave on Friday for Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and I'm in the diet's got to be on point. I can't miss a day in the gym. I made the joke with you. I'm not going to call any names out that way it's a constant discussion between 2 or 3 of us about who's got the better tan in the locker room. And there's things I can't do in the ring anymore, but I can still look like I can go. Sometimes I get in the ring and I let myself down, but it's just a grind, but I'm in it and I love it.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing, like how do I say this delicately? You passed the sniff test, right? Like, you look like a professional wrestler. You look like you could be anywhere. You don't have any like physical limitations that look like you would be held back. I mean, you've got a great look. Obviously, we talked about the tan, and you can get in there and lock horns with just about anybody. I mean, prior to the pandemic, we saw you and Jax really go toe to toe in that ring. And I know Jax is somebody that you have a ton of respect for. You guys have locked horns multiple times, and we're going back to not just the Billy Corgan era of the NWA, but also the Bruce Tharpe era of the NWA. In fact, your guys' feud was almost like a race to the top to see who would get to that 10 pounds of gold first. You guys both, each had a title and were efforting to get to that point. What is it like working, those matches in the past with Jack Stane, and then still seeing him being a part of the show with you now, and kind of having that camaraderie that you guys shared back in the day?
Well, like you said, I have just the ultimate respect for Jax, and he and I still joke. I carry legit scars on my body that he gave me that will never go away, and he's got his own that he would share. I'll let him share those if he wants, but yeah, it was. We knew that when we get in there, it's going to be an incredibly physical contest that we're going to, neither one of us, I don't think, would claim to be the technical wrestler, but we know when we get in there that it's going to be physical and we're going to beat on each other. And, if we had to take a if we did a win or loss rate between the two of them, he's beat me more times than I beat him. But when you do that, when you get in there and go through that, it's like any other sport. You get in there and you battle with somebody, you just develop that respect. And I'm glad he's with the NWA. He deserves that. He paid a price, just like a lot of other guys there that did. He carried what I consider the most prestigious title in the history of wrestling. That alone to me carries a huge amount of weight. So I love being in the ring with Jax because we both know we're gonna give everything we got, and we're just gonna see who comes out on top at the end.
And I mean, when you talk about that history that you guys share, and kind of what I was saying earlier too, like every single champion before you kind of paved the way for you to be here. Again, if it wasn't for Jax Dane, Tim Storm wouldn't have had that opportunity to carry that 10 pounds of gold. One of the most interesting title matches you had as champion, as World's Heavyweight Champion, was when you went to Japan. And it was a relatively new wrestling promotion that at the time was working with Bruce Tharp's NWA. Could you tell us a little bit about your time with that title defense in Japan? I think you were wrestling a sumo wrestler, weren't you?
Yeah, it was, and I'm probably going to, unfortunately, probably draw a blank on his name, but it's, I think every professional wrestler that's been in the business, that has wants to be in the business, I think we all want to wrestle in Japan. And for me, that was, I grew up watching the NWA. I watched World Class. I watched, Memphis Wrestling. I watched AWA. But as becoming a wrestler, when we traveled, when we would spend, you name it, 18 hours in a van with 12 guys, what we were probably watching was a lot of Japanese wrestling. So that's one of the places that I think every wrestler wants to go. And I think it's probably, whether it's changed now or not, I think, historically, you knew that if you were going to Japan, you were probably going to make good money.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to, now that there's a price, right? There's that flight. There's all those things that go with this. But Bruce had developed a relationship. We were doing some other things. Rob Comley and Jax had gone to Japan a couple of times. One of my best friends is a guy named James Beard. James made a living in Japan as a referee and helping in the dojo and training, and he was on the trip. I got to go with a lot of really good, guys that I knew really well, and I think that's a career opportunity. You get to go to Japan, where wrestling is really looked at and respected in a whole different level. At least in the past, I don't know now, but in the past, it's considered more of a mainstream sport there. In the 80s and 90s, you had probably headlines over baseball and everything else in Japan.
Yeah.
So, and everybody wants to go to Riviera, and get the jacket. And I mean, that's some things that you want to do. So when the opportunity came up, it was definitely on my, I got to check this off my list. And I'm gonna draw a blank on the guy's name, and that's probably
I got it for you. Ryota Hama.
Okay, thank you. Over probably 480 pounds, former legit sumo wrestler, trained, had some success, made a transition from that into MMA. So he did some, very legit fighting. He was working, he was kind of a local hero from all of those, and then got into professional wrestling. So to go there and to work in Japan against kind of a local hero, my expectations were, and like you said, it was an upstart promotion. It was not, it wasn't in front of 40,000 people, but it was a very nice venue. The card was really good. We had a lot of talent there. There was a lot of guys that came from the U.S. On our talent roster that came. And my expectation was, okay, I'm going to walk in, and I came out to, like, it was their request. I came out to the same music that Harley and funk that used in Japan. It's very, I don't want to say bland, but it was known there. But my thought was, okay, well, they're probably going to boo me. I'm from the U.S. I'm the champion. I'm working their local guy, and as the champion, you come out second. And I walked through the curtain, and they were chanting NWA. The respect level there, being NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, carries over from all those guys that brought that title over there and defended it. And the match was good. I mean, obviously, he's almost 500 pounds. There's some things that it's going to be a brutal match.
Right.
I actually ran across a memory the other day. I can't remember on what social media it was, that the president of the NWA tweeted, I think, from ringside, and it said in the first. I wish I could pull that up right now, but it said something like, in the first 20 seconds of the match, Tim Storm just rocked Hama with a right fist that almost took him off his feet. You could see the fear in his eyes, and the match changed immediately. And that's true. You know, I work a very physical style anyway.
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, to me, Japan was in my wheelhouse. And that's, you know, it's tough to say I'm going to go toe-to-toe with a 500-pound man. But I knew that I had to establish that. And I just like he said, when that right landed, I looked in his eyes and I thought, oh, all right, well, this match just took a turn. And it was physical. He did a lot of, I mean, that's a lot of person coming on you. But, you know, it was a good match. I was proud to be there. I checked it off my list, and we did a couple of different shows. And, you know, it was a great experience. I'd love, and going into it, I looked back and went, yeah, I'd love to do that more. You know, it can't get much better, right? Defending the NWA World's title in Japan.
Now, also while you're there, I gotta ask, how was the steak at the Riviera restaurant? I mean, it looked so good when you see all the photos and all the extra butter and everything else, but, I mean, how was that steak?
Man, I don't know how to answer this. It was really good. It was you know, it was a famous steak at a famous steakhouse, and I was with Matt Riviera and Rob Conway and James Beard and the owner, and there's two of them now, I believe, two steakhouses. One by the original, that's the one we went to, and one I think is a son. So we were at the original, and you know, there's always that question. I don't know if people know this or not, but a lot of guys have those jackets, and it's a mark. You know, it's a landmark. If you have that, you've done something. A lot of wrestlers go in there and have to buy that jacket. So you never know. Are they going to recognize? Are they going to understand? And you know, they brought the jacket out and gave it to me, and then the guy also walked over and pointed at the ceiling. And we were like, what's he doing? We walked over, and it was a picture of James Beard with Randy Savage, Jim Neidhart, and Haku from 30 years before, and the guy recognized him. So that was very cool. Okay, to answer your question, I'm not sure that this isn't sacrilegious. I think I'd rather have Texas Roadhouse.
Of course.
But and again, that may be sacrilegious, but the steak was good. But you know, I like to eat, so I needed two of those to fill me up. But you know, we worked it out. It worked out well.
That's great. I always wondered about that because, again, the NWA was in a different place then than it is now. There wasn't nearly as much coverage on the NWA when you were world's champion under the Bruce Tharpe regime as opposed to the Billy Corgan regime. Obviously, with having power and it being really successful, not only that, but then the opportunities that you had to defend that title in Hollywood. You had opportunities to defend that title in the Impact Zone against Josephus. Excuse me, I got that mixed up. That match wasn't for the title. That was a last man standing match. Excuse me, I got that mixed up.
That was right after I had lost to Nick. So, yeah, I think it would be unfair for me or anybody else to deny, because I think you said that Dr. Stetson used the term the lost in the wilderness. I think it would be denial to say that, you know, you can't compare, in good conscience, you can't compare Ric Flair, Harley Race, Dusty Rhodes, NWA to Bruce Tharpe, you know, era NWA. And also, because my goal from the beginning when I committed to people to work in the NWA was, I grew up watching that. And I didn't know what I could do, if anything, but my goal was, what can I do to try to bring this, to elevate it to some degree. And that was before I ever thought about winning the world title. You know, but I think Billy Corgan has accomplished that. You know, and I'm not saying we're on the same level, but you see it moving back up on a positive way. And you know, he came out at the very beginning and said 20-year plan, and everybody kind of scoffed at it, but it's still rolling, and we're still moving up that ladder, and we're going to get there. And I think sooner than later.
We have someone watching along with us, Dave Scooby, and he says he remembers watching you wrestle back at Harley's World Legion Wrestling in Springfield back in 2000. How were those memories? I mean, you were actually there. You were there with Dave Marquez and Harley Race, and I mean that was different. That was definitely a different era and a different vibe too, because that was a very much like a studio program, kind of like Power. And there was a lot of guys who were working at WCW at the time who would come and work those WLW shows. Can you tell us a little bit about the times that you were there working with WLW?
That was very early for me, and I mean that career-wise. The man that I trained with is a man named Bill Ash. A lot of old school guys would know him. A lot of guys would not. It's an era thing. But Bill had trained. We'd been training with him, and he had gotten the call, I guess, from Harley to try to help with booking and those kind of things. So a lot of us had opportunities. It was a great experience, especially for somebody who had a handful of matches. You know, I went in and there always seems to be a place in wrestling for bigger guys. And at the time, I was wrestling as Big Tim Storm, and it was a cowboy gimmick, and the hat and the duster and all those kind of things. And I was also probably closer to 300 pounds, than 250. Short hair, but I had the ugly mustache, and but I got in there and I look back now and I cringe at those matches as far as how I performed. But I had great opportunities. I went in, and I think my very first match was my first real TV match, was against Hacksaw Butch Reed. And he beat the crap out of me, legit. Sure. I was a huge Harley Race fan. Growing up, nothing but massive respect. So for me, just being in the locker room and having, Mr. Race come over and who's working Butch, that's me, sir, and so I think my second match was against King Mabel, which becomes Viscera, Big Daddy V. Took a crossbody off the second rope, and we bit the ring. That was a great experience. I worked Dan Severn for the first time up there. So I had a lot of really good experiences, and I learned a lot. And not just in the ring. I remember getting the second TV taping we had. I remember the entire locker room getting the speeches of, "Hey guys, you're on TV now. So some of you need to get into the tanning bed." And at that time in my life, I had never been in a tanning bed. So that was new to me. I mean, but I learned a lot, and it was a great experience. It didn't end well. Turns out that my trainer had a falling out with Harley, and we were told, that we're not doing that anymore. I didn't realize what that meant is that we ended up no-showing Harley Race, which is a no-no. We thought the show was gone. It wasn't. We were gone. So. That's never a good thing, and I'm not sure I ever got back up over that hill with Harley, but,
Well, Harley was so impassioned about the NWA. I mean, we saw it when he kind of endorsed Nick Aldis. Right. We've seen it in the past where he's always been kind of associated with the brand, being an 8-time World's Heavyweight Champion. So I'm sure that he marveled at you having the 10 pounds of gold, and was probably a staunch supporter too, because that title has always meant something. And I, like you said, that was your mountaintop. And I think people really kind of got hung up on that. And they said, well, it's just the NWA World's title. But they don't understand the legacy that belt has, going all the way back to 1948. And just some of the great names that have been associated with that title. And I recently heard Bully Ray talking about CM Punk and the number of sellouts that they had at Madison Square Garden, and the title reigns that he had with the WWE, and compared it to Bruno Sammartino, and just said, hold on a second, we just compared CM Punk to Bruno Sammartino, and that carries weight. It means something. And the fact of the matter is that you carried that 10 pounds of gold, and whether it was in Japan or in Arkansas, you were defending that title. And it wasn't like you wrestled bums. Like, you wrestled legitimate competition. Matt Riviera, great talent. Big Daddy Yum Yum, great talent. Jax Dane, Rodney Max, Brent McKenzie. I mean, you've really faced some tough competition when you were champion. What, looking back as your reign as world champion, what was the hallmark of your career? What was the defining moment for you?
Well, and okay, let me back up what you just said. It's the night that I won that title. I don't think anything could top that. I never dreamed of carrying that. Like a lot of people would say, well, when you get in the business, you need to be in, and you need to. I'm gonna be world champion. I never dreamed of that. That is the title, and that's why it meant so much to me, and still means that much to me. That is the title that I grew up knowing, not believing, knowing was the most important title in the history of wrestling, which was a big deal to me. I don't know that anything's going to top winning it that night, because here was my one thought, and I laugh now because that was almost 5 years ago, something like that. And I'm just basing it on my age, because I found out later I was the oldest person to ever win that title, which cracks me up because that was 53. I'm 57 now, so we're talking 4 or 5 years ago.
57?
I know, I'm
Tim,
old.
Tim, no, you're lying to us. There's no way you're 57, brother. There's no way. I don't buy it.
Rapidly crawling up to 58. But the night that I won that title, I had one thought, because there was a lot of people that thought, okay, this is a really nice pat on the back, thanks for all your hard work, probably won't hold it for long. My one thought that night was, and it was legit emotion, legit tears, I don't know how long I'm going to hold this title, but that my name is now on a list of some of the most prestigious, prominent men in the history of this business, and whether I hold it one day or 1 year, they can't take my name off that list. And that's why that meant so much to me. That's why it means so much to me now. If you go through it, and you can go through that early, that like you just did, but you can go through the Funks and Harley and Ric Flair and Steamboat, and you can come all the way up into a more modern era, and you can say Jarrett and AJ Styles and Sabu, and then you can come further than that, and now we can look at a new era. And even if you look at Japanese wrestlers with Kojima and Baba, and it is it is the great grandfather of every title, and every title in the history of wrestling has come in some way out of that. It meant that much to me. So all those guys that you mentioned, I knew every night that when I would walk into it didn't matter where it was, because the way the NWA was set up is it had, I think it was 53 franchises, and every franchise was supposed to, not all did, supposed to use the world champion once in a year. That would be 53 matches. Some could do it more. But you knew you were walking in, and it was an old school territory system where you knew you were going to get the guy that they're pushing, that they're one of their best talents, and not only that, but you're going to get their best shot of whatever they've got on that night, because it was an honor for them to be in the NWA and get a shot at the world title. You could not have an off night. You couldn't, because you're there to try to have a great match with those people, regardless of how long they've been wrestling and what they've got. That's your job. There are no off nights, and you had to go in and you had to carry the ball every time you went in.
One of the greatest things, maybe not greatest things, but one of the things that always tickled me about your reign as world's heavyweight champion is you went to New Jersey, Hackensack, New Jersey, to face Rodney Mack, when both of you guys are Texas guys. But it took going to New Jersey for you guys to square off.
Well, and here's the reality of that night. I'm friends with both these guys, so they may, but the original booking for that was Charlie Haas and I, and it turned out to be flight problems, those kind of things, and both those guys are just beasts. It's and like you said, I was seeing both those guys at the NW franchise locally once or twice a month, and we weren't wrestling all the time. But like you said, we went to New Jersey to, and that was a brand new NWA franchise. Andrew Anderson, had started a franchise there called Big Apple, and did a great job with it, and enjoyed the trip. But you're right, a bunch of us got on a flight from Texas, flew up to New Jersey, and wrestled, and then probably flew home, and the next week saw each other again. So that's wrestling.
And people, I don't want to. I'm not asking you to toot your own horn, right? But are you aware of how you appeared on those 10 pounds of gold? I know I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but when new ownership took over, Obviously, there was a direction change. There was a whole plan that had changed. A lot of turnover. There was no more territory system. It was just one wrestling promotion. And that 10 pounds of gold that was produced by the NWA put this light, this focus on you that I don't know that you got all that often.
No.
I'm telling you, there were people who, see, in Southern California, Dave Marquez was associated with the NWA for so long, up until about 2012 when ownership changed there. And when we think of NWA in Southern California, we think of Colt Cabana, Adam Pearce, Blue Demon Jr., Brent Albright, all great champions in their own right. But then you come along with this 10 pounds of gold series, and for people who stopped following the NWA when they left California, weren't used to you, didn't know you, and then had this spotlight on you, and people legitimately fell in love with you, Tim. And I'm not saying that because you're my guest here and I'm trying to blow smoke up your butt. I actually had friends who were like, who is this Tim Storm guy? Where have you guys been hiding him? He is so damn charming. Did you know how that would impact you, and did you know that when you were walking into it, and how long did it take for you to find out? Please tell me I'm not the one telling you this news right now.
Well, the answer is absolutely not. I had no clue. That was a big decision for me. I am an old school guy, and I grew up trained by old school. You protected it. You protected who you are, and there were three things I protected. I didn't want anybody to know my age. I didn't want to walk into someplace, and I work really hard to be able to do what I do and try to present myself in a good light. And I didn't want anybody, I know it's true now, but I don't like people going, wow, he's in really good shape for his age, right? I wanted to go in and be a wrestler, and I didn't want anybody to know that. I didn't want anybody to know my family, because old school, you just didn't do that, because it didn't, whether you were working as a world champion, you don't really work face or heel. You work as the world champion. You do whatever you have to in the ring against the guy that you're working, right?
Absolutely.
So I didn't want anybody to know who my family was. And I didn't want anybody to know I was a school teacher, because it's the old school is, and again, I keep bringing up the name, but old school is Ric Flair. If you're a world champion, you come in a limo, and that's all you do, and you're flying everywhere. Well, I didn't want anybody to know that. And under Billy, Dave Lagana, those guys, I really believed that when the ownership changed, because I found out about it just like everybody else.
Wow.
I was sitting in my classroom, and my phone just started blowing up saying, all right, and then I mean by wrestlers, by NWA franchise owners saying, what's going on? Did you know about this? Because everybody was at Cauliflower Alley Club for the celebration. And I was sitting in my classroom, and I don't know. I'll find out. I don't know. And my first thought was, well, it was a good run. Billy at that point had a recent history with Impact, and he's been in wrestling a long time in one regard or another. And I really had the feeling that, okay, it's nothing personal. They're going to probably go with somebody that they feel comfortable with, probably a younger guy. So in our first conversations, it was fairly guarded. It was like, my thing was, and I try to do this with everything, I will approach everything as professionally as I can.
Right.
Let's make it make sense. And I thought, okay, well, we'll just see what happens. And they came to me and said, we think you have a really good story that will connect people. We have this concept, which is the 10 pounds of gold. And we've seen that even recently on the build up to Race to the Chase. We've seen them putting together these features and these backgrounds that show, okay, well, it was tough for me to go, okay, let's do it. And on the first couple of episodes, my first thought was, wow, this is really well done. It had nothing to do with me. Like, these are really well produced. They look great. The editing is fantastic. Where's this music coming from? Because I've never been a part of something like that.
Right.
And I know in the first episode or two, everybody was hitting the fans of commenting, mostly about my age. Who is this guy? How do you have a champion that old? Where is so? But it built momentum. It grew. I saw it building, and everyone seemed to get better. I don't know how many there were, maybe 10. And I know that by the end, there was very little negative. And And I made this comment in a lot of interviews at the time. It's not many professional wrestlers who at whatever I was at the time, 54 or whatever it was, gets the biggest push of their life. And is more recognized. And don't get me wrong, in the South, and even though I was wrestling nationally some, but Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, I was those places for years, every weekend somewhere. That's fine. But now all of a sudden I'm getting national and even worldwide attention. And let me throw this in there. With NW Power, it happened again, right? I mean, how many of us get that opportunity? So it was. I had no idea what was going to happen. I couldn't have asked for anything better. I probably, if it hadn't, I'd probably wrestled off into the sunset and still be working, local shows and having fun, and nobody'd still know who I was. So, yeah.
Now, I kind of want to go a little bit further back in the time machine, because before you became world champion, you were a 2-time North American champion. And again, this was in the territory days of the NWA, where you were still going from territory to territory, defending that title. How was that, how am I trying to phrase it? Being that champion and carrying that North American title, and I know it's a different North American title today, but carrying the significance of that belt and traveling around with that title, how is that for you? In what fond memories do you have as being North American champion?
Well, at the time, I remember, let me go way back. In my first year of wrestling, I lived in Little Rock, Arkansas at the time. I trained in Paris, which I don't know, Paris, Arkansas, maybe 2 hours away, maybe. And I would drive down, every Saturday, spend the day, work out all day, drive back. We do that sometimes a couple. Anyway, when I first started working shows, I had the opportunity to work in this tiny high school gym. And I was so excited because they were advertising themselves as NWA Mid-South. And again, I have a friend who opened a legit franchise that became the NWA Mid-South, not him, because he did a great job. This was some little, what we would have called an outlaw show.
Sure.
With, who knows, 50 or 60 people. Anyway, I was so excited to get to work for what was an NWA franchise. So if you fast forward and you put that North American title, that was, again, at that point, that was a major accomplishment for me. To carry every franchise had its own local titles, but to carry a title that represented the entire NWA, all the franchises, was a huge deal for me. I can remember even looking it up, going, okay, I know that the world title's at the top. I'd probably never have a shot at that. Then there was the North American and the national. Where does that? So I was even looking up who held it, because that's all the legacy, the heritage is really important to me.
Right.
But it turned out, looking back, and I don't think anybody planned it at the time, but that was the learning ground. That was the proving ground to show that you could go out and represent. How are you going to handle a promoter that wants to make a change and doesn't have the authority? How do you handle that?
Yeah.
How do you handle yourself in a ring against a guy who, if he pins you that night, he's the champion, and it may not be what the promotion wants. That turned into a great preparation and learning ground to then carry that and have it when I got the opportunity to win the world title. It was a great experience.
Let's talk about the transition from being the guy in the NWA to taking that step back. And I know that's got to have been a little hard for you, and even maybe more so now, because your matches are, like we said earlier, further and farther between. Was that did that kind of humble you a little bit? Did that hurt a little bit, or did you know that there was a role for you and you?
I'm laughing because I'm still dealing with it. That's why I'm laughing. I'm giggling about it. Yeah, I'm still dealing with it. I mean, there's a reality check there, and it doesn't. I won't say it humbled me, because the one thing that nobody can take away from me, regardless of the future. I held the world title. I mean, that's a permanent thing. And I'm laughing because, and I don't know that I've said this publicly, I'm not even sure I should say it now, but I'm going to, just because it's the way my mind works. At the first pay-per-view back, I knew I didn't have a match. I didn't know any plans going forward, what was happening. What I was told was, bring a suit. You'll probably do color commentary on a couple of matches. Okay. Well, I had actually been doing a little bit of that at another, at another show. And, long term, I want to be in wrestling, whatever that means. Whether it's helping as an agent, whether it's managing, whatever. I don't ever want to get out of the business. And Joe actually came up to me, Joe Galley came up to me a couple hours before the show and said, "Oh, I see that you're doing color commentary." And my response was, "Yeah, I don't know which match yet." And he goes, "Well, what do you mean? You're doing color?" And I went, "Yeah, but I don't know which matches." And he goes, "No, you don't understand. You're doing color commentary on the pay-per-view, all of it. That's what you're doing tonight." And just because of my personality, I was like, "Okay." And actually, somebody came up to me later. I won't say a name, but somebody came up and said, "Are you nervous?" And I went, "No. Am I supposed to be nervous? I don't. I just go out there and do it and hope it. I do my best." Now, here's the part I haven't said. Boy, I don't know if this is good or bad, but I'm just gonna say it. So here's what I'm still at. Still deal with this all the time, personally. Nick Aldis made the comment on an interview that he did that said that Tim Storm is a victim of his own brilliance on commentary, that the plan was never for me to do commentary. Now, I'm not saying I'm brilliant. I'm quoting Nick because I would never say that. But here's what I deal with, and it cracks me up because this is just my personality. If they say, "Hey, you're doing commentary," then my inside, I immediately go, "Oh, what? I can't wrestle?" Is that what you're saying? You're saying I can't wrestle? Okay. If they say, "Hey, you've got a match," then my first thought is, "Oh, wait, I can't do commentary?" Is that what you're saying? So it's like, I want to do a good job at whatever I do. I want to represent myself. I want to represent the NWA. My heart is always going to be in the ring. But I also have to be enough of a realist to know, and I'm not going to give a list because I haven't made this list for anybody, but my body is breaking down really quick. I know I have my limitations. I don't know what I have left. But I'm not ready to quit. I just want to quit before I embarrass the business and embarrass myself, whenever that is. And then when that happens, and I've even debated, maybe it's time to slowly move into commentary and just enjoy, because I do enjoy it. I'm still learning. I'm trying to get better. So, but there's your answer. It wasn't humbling. I know the reality of where I'm at, but my heart is in the ring, and that's where I love being, and you can't replace that. But I will tell you that, especially on maybe the last night of the championship series, watching those matches and commentating on those matches, I'm sitting there doing commentary thinking, man, these guys, this is good.
Yeah.
Where do I fit into this? If I'm in there with that guy, can I, and I guess that's a question that you always have to prove as a wrestler. I did that I still do it. Before I go through the curtain, my challenge is personal. I'm going to show myself, I'm going to show everybody else, right? I'm going to show them what I can still do. So, I think that answers your question.
No, it 100% does. The other thing, and you maybe kind of already answered it, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Are you surprised by the reaction that you got from the fans with you on commentary? Because everyone's, look, Jim Cornette had big shoes to be filled when he left. They brought in Stu Bennett. Stu did an amazing job, blew everyone away. We had no idea how good Stu was going to be. Then Stu, obviously, during the pandemic, took a job with the World Wrestling Entertainment. And we're like, well, who's going to do color? And then you stepped into it and did it so well. And that's not surprising because you are articulate. You can, obviously, you know what wrestling is, so you can, of course, call it. And you speak so well and eloquently that it's not a surprise that you do well at it. But are you surprised by the reaction that you get from the fans?
I am. But the night that I cut the promo before Nick and I's match, I didn't have any idea that it was going to get any response. I was just speaking from the heart. That surprised me. Same thing with this. I didn't go out there with a lot of preparation. I just speak from my experience and my heart, and if it hits, if it registers with fans, nobody's happier about that than me, because I just want to do a good job and represent. It like you said, I look at that, and I think I'm pretty objective, and I know all three of us have different personalities and we offer different things, but the Jim Cornette and Stu, I'm not as good as those guys. I'm totally different. I'm just saying, I look at that and I'm just like, all I can do is go out there and do my best because, man, those guys, I mean, obviously, Jim Cornette, his years of experience in every aspect and his knowledge, I didn't know that Stu had done some commentary in England and Europe before. I didn't know how good he was. I was blown away.
Yeah, same.
I getting to know him, because I didn't know him prior to that, getting to know him and talking to him about things, and still blown away. I mean, his preparation, he's so much better at those things than, and the way, anyway, I look at those guys and just go, wow. But all I can do is go out there and do the best I can. I see my flaws, and I'll probably tear them out, just like I do in the ring. I watch a match and I go, what are you thinking? Where'd that come from? You've been doing this too long to make that mistake. So I tear myself up in commentary too when I watch and I listen, and I'm like, okay, I got to do better. And I'll just try to keep getting better. That's all I can do.
Is that part of the preparation, is going back and watching yourself and kind of saying, oh, well, I went wrong on this one, or I was right on the money on that one? I mean, is that something you do for preparation?
Absolutely. It's like there was a time in my wrestling career, maybe the first 15 years, where I recorded every match. I went back and watched every match. And then it got to the point where I became so critical that I didn't want to go back and watch because it took the enjoyment away. But that's where I'm at. I go back and I listen and I watch the matches and I think, okay, because really it's just me. Oh, boy, this is a terrible analogy, because I'm an old school rap guy. I know nobody knows that.
No, nobody knows that, but let's break that down too.
This is just freestyle rap. I mean, it's me going out there and just talking and thinking out loud. The key is this: it's not about me. It's about the two people I'm working with and how good they are and the chemistry that we have. And that's what I see. Joe Galli is a master at directing. Like he'll take something, and I'll tell him it's like when you're first starting wrestling and you go into a match with somebody, your job is to shut up, listen, and let them direct you. Joe directs. He's the one that's steering the ship, right? He'll say, well, Velvet, tell us about, or Tim, tell us, and he's directing the ship. Well, all I've got to do is respond to his direction. And then I told Billy after the first TV tapings that bringing Velvet in was a genius move. She offers a whole different aspect to everything that we do. And her emotion is like mine, is so real, but her presentation is so different. And you want to ask somebody, again, about wrestling in general. We have such a talented women's roster. Ask her about a match.
Yeah. And
that chemistry, to me, that's when I watch a show, I can go back and watch the first couple of episodes that we did, and I can go, all right, that's a little bumpy, the transitions, whatever. And now even between, I can go back and go, wow, that was really good. And it's not that I did good. It's that chemistry is so good, and the longer we're there, the more we develop it, and the better we get. And again, that's about the fans. We're just trying to get a good product.
Now, old school rap, I can't let this go. I'm sorry, you opened up a Pandora's box over here. Eric B, Rakim, LL Cool J, Big Daddy Kane, Run DMC. Who are we talking about?
Run DMC is my all-time favorite. Now realize I'm old, so I go back to Sugar Hill.
Yes.
Fat Boys, Beastie Boys. I go back as that was the beginning, was Sugar Hill. And that's where I come from. And I don't want to out Velvet either, but Velvet is a huge rap fan.
Sure.
We share. I'm currently, my stuff is that I quoted it at one point and said he was a great philosopher, but Eminem, Tupac, Biggie, 50 Cent. And again, I do this to my students every year.
Sure.
Like if I play music in class, I have to be really careful what I play, and I play like Disney classics because that's safe. And somebody will say, Mr. Scoggins, is this your playlist? And I went, yeah, this is what I'm listening to when I work out. And then I'll say, tell me what you think I listen to. And it's inevitable. It's always the same. You listen to country music? No, I don't. You listen to classic 80s rock? No. And I like all music, sure. But that's what I listen to. That's what I'm listening to in the gym.
I'll never forget when you quoted Eminem at a show, and that kind of got me. That popped me. One of our viewers right now, Wrestling with the MMA, says, "Please say KRS-One." So I think he wants you to go whoop whoop. That's the sound of the police. But we'll do that another time.
Don't ever get me to rap publicly. I'm just saying it's what motivates me. It's my background, and I started that in the '80s, and that's when I started listening, and I won't ever quit that. Doesn't mean I don't listen to everything. I do, but that's what I'm listening to most of the time.
I was a child of the '80s, walking the mean streets of Lakewood, California, wearing my Adidas. But
Two Fifth Street's funky fresh, and yeah, I mean, I'm a big. It's my friends, even my wrestling friends, like. When I started training, people started buying me Run DMC stuff, and it doesn't get any better. And I'll be honest, when I quoted Eminem, that was strictly for me. Didn't think anybody would get it. And when I said it, and the crowd started laughing, I almost couldn't keep a straight face because I was like,
we can kind of tell a little bit. We were all in on the joke with you, and it was awesome. I know we're running out of time, but I need to ask because that's why we're here, is to talk about the 73rd anniversary. Of course, you were part of the 70th anniversary pay-per-view. This pay-per-view, you're going to be in the Lou, battling in the Lou, and you're going to be facing Crimson and one of, I'm going to just say it right now, one of the most underutilized guys in the entire National Wrestling Alliance, and Tom Latimer. That guy, I think, is maybe a wrestling prodigy. He has a 5-tool set. You got some stiff competition on Sunday. What are you doing to prepare for this match, and what are your thoughts about this match?
I'm gonna approach this like I do everything else. Honestly, there's not many matches that I go into where I'm the smallest guy in the ring.
That's right.
I'm dieting hard. I better look good because who knows how it's going to go in there. These guys are beasts. They're legitimate. I mean, it's classic NWA wrestling. You got 3 grown men in there that just bring it.
Yes.
Both of them are talented. Both of them are physical. Both of them are big. Both of them are technically better than I am as far as a technical wrestler. But I'll tell you what, I got fired up a little bit when it was called the Battle of the Lou, right? I mean, the brawl. Oh, we want to brawl? Oh, okay. I think I'm going to be okay. We want to fight. I'm okay with that. Now, again, I don't disagree with anything you just said. I think Tom is just amazing, and I've loved what I've seen recently, where they've allowed his personality to come out a little bit, because for a long time you just didn't see that. Crimson, the history with those guys, as far as what they've done in the business and what they're doing in the business, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not quite sure how this is going to work because I plan on doing commentary and wrestling, and we'll just see how that works out.
Okay.
We'll see how that works, but I'm excited, and I'll be, again, just being honest, because that's who I am. I want to wrestle at the Chase. It's 37 years since wrestling has been at what Billy has termed the soul of the NWA at one point. And I read an article recently that said, and it was an older article that said, if you didn't, your path to greatness went through the Chase. If you were anybody at that point, you wrestled at the Chase, and there were huge names that wrestled there because it was the Chase. So just the fact that I'm going to get to wrestle at a legendary venue, sold out crowd, against 2 amazing wrestlers, I'm excited about it. I'm going to go into it just like I do everything else. I'm going to prepare. I'm going to work hard, and I plan to win it just like I do every other match. We'll just see how it goes.
I mean, and that's all you can do. You will be in the ring with 2 behemoths, but let's not take anything away from you. You're a scrapper. You're a fighter. You've been doing this for a very long time. If anyone can pull this out, the fans are rooting for you. Real quick, I want you to put on your ambassador hat for the NWA. What does it mean to you and the NWA that you guys sold that venue out without even a card being announced?
That amazes me, and I think that I guess that's a philosophy on how to promote it. I think that means everything. I think that we obviously have a loyal following. I think people appreciate the product that we bring. Not to bash anybody or downgrade anybody, but we said from the beginning that we wanted to offer something different. We wanted to offer a physical, old school style storytelling, promo based show, and I think that the fans appreciate that. I think that they're loyal to it, and I think the fact that it sold out so quickly without a card being announced is is a statement of that. I think there are a lot of people right now that are thinking, I was going to wait till the card was announced before I bought, and that's gone. But look at and there's still stuff coming. There's still announcements that haven't been made. There's more to come. I don't think it's going to get any bigger than Ric Flair being announced. I can't imagine anything bigger than that. Legendary venue, legendary people, and our hope is a legendary pay-per-view that everybody's going to love.
I'll be honest, Tim. I regret not setting up myself to be there live and in person, but I will be watching on pay-per-view like many others on Fight. So I do. I know. I said about 45 minutes to an hour. We're at an hour, so I'm going to let you go now. I do want to say thank you so much for being on the show today. I this is kind of a last-minute thing, so I really do appreciate you taking some time to be with us today. I also want you to plug anything you want, social media, upcoming matches, merchandise, anything you have, anything you want to plug, please take the time to do so now.
Here's what I told you this before we started. I look at this as we're the Alliance, JU, Doc, Gary, we're all on the same team on this. We love professional wrestling. We want to see it. We want it to be successful. All I'm going to plug is the NWA. We've got Empower, the first all women's pay-per-view. Our talent roster for women was already amazing, and Mickie James is the executive producer with the people that she has. I popped the other day just from the people that are helping, and I'm probably going to forget, but I think it was Gail Kim. It was one of my really good friends, Jazz. I'm leaving somebody out that's going to be mad. Yeah, thank you. It's kind of the Medusa, who I did her podcast a couple of years. We got that in itself is amazing. Then we moved to the men's, the regular pay-per-view, the NWA 73, because Camille's going to defend her title, Nick's defending his title. Tag titles are being defended. It's going to be amazing. Follow that up with 2 days of TV tapings. It's going to be a fantastic NWA weekend. I don't need to plug myself. I don't need to plug other shows. We are 6 days away. I'm leaving Friday night. And we start this big thing, this celebration, this party for the NWA Saturday, and it's going to be a great 4 days. Everybody, I understand it's sold out. Fight TV, there's still bundles available where you can get both pay-per-views. Support wrestling all over. Support the NWA because it doesn't get any better than that.
And we can't. I'd be remiss if we didn't mention that your long-lost cousin, Cowboy James Storm, is making his return to the NWA. And he's going to be challenging for that national title. I just had to throw that in there because how often do you get a Cowboy Storm and a Perfect Storm at the same show, right?
And obviously the man has. We've known each other a long time. We have some pretty funny running jokes about storylines that would be fun to run if that ever happened. Love him to death. Super talent. Anytime he's in the ring, it's going to be a great show. I don't want to start ranting. Look at the matches. There is every match on there is a main event primetime match. This is going to be great stuff. I'm looking forward to all of it. Whether it doesn't matter if I'm in the ring or at the table, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm predicting it right now. Your match will be the one that everyone's talking about come Monday morning, and you can quote me on that. I think you guys are going to be great. I am looking forward to the both nights of pay-per-view. I myself will be watching them. I hope everyone listening to this make sure that they go and order the pay-per-view. And Tim, you are the professional. You can do it all, man. You could wrestle, you can commentate, and you're a great guest on a podcast. So thank you for being here, and good luck this weekend. I hope you guys just knock it out of the park. I know you're going to knock it out of the park. But thanks again for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. And that's Tim Storm, everyone. So, again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back on Tuesday for the pre-party, and we'll be back on Thursday with Kevin, DKM, and myself giving you the predictions for the pay-per-view. And I think Kev is going with Tom Latimer, but I'm going with Tim. So there. All right. Thanks a lot, Tim. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Jay.
All right. Bye.